we have the final keynote. So if you think about entrepreneurship, it is not for the faint of heart. But if you get the right guidance, mentoring, then it can be a lot of fun. So for our closing keynote, I'm going to invite someone who is so special, who is so inspirational, that this person has led and is leading startups as seamlessly as he has led established companies and made them a powerhouse in their respective domains. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Joe Costello to close our track this evening. Joe?
My first comment for the closing remarks, this is the first of the TI conferences I've been to. I was invited a couple of times, and something always came up that I couldn't quite make it. So it was the first time, a couple hours, I walked into the conference, and my first reaction is, wow, right? When I say wow about it is, there's a buzz. You know, you come from some other place, and you walk into this environment, and it's electric. There's just a lot of positive energy. There's a lot of buzz in the environment here, which is fantastic. And that's perfect for the topic that I'm going to be talking about, this future of this IoT space. So I'm going to start by stepping back a little bit and take a bigger picture, and then I'll narrow down to IoT and then get really narrow and give a little bit of advice about what I have seen in this IoT space. The first thing I'll start with on the bigger picture side of things is we are all here the lucky ones. Everyone here in this room, everyone here in this conference, we are really the lucky people, for real. And when I say that, I don't mean, you know, little luck, not micro luck, like, you know, geez, you know, I missed that traffic accident on the 237 and saved a half-hour commuting. No, not the micro luck, or, you know, thank goodness I didn't bet on the Warriors because Steph Curry hurt his leg, right? I'm talking about the macro luck, right? In the macro luck, we are the lucky ones. And the reason for that, this is an event filled with technologists and technology entrepreneurs. You know, that's what the event's all about. And there couldn't be a better time or place in history to be if you're a technologist and a technology entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is if you step away, if you went forward in history 200 years and you were to look back in history, you would look at this period of time and you go, oh, yeah, that was part of the golden age of technology. This would be seen as the golden age of technology. I guarantee you that's how historians will look back at this period of time. And we're right in the middle of it. We are at the epicenter of the golden age of technology, like golden ages before. You know, Renaissance, you know, the epicenter was Florence. You know, if you were an artist of any kind, that was the place to be in the Renaissance. In the Enlightenment, if you were a philosopher, Paris was the place to be during that period of time. If you're a technologist, this is the time and place to be as a technologist and a technology entrepreneur, because this is the golden age of technology. So from a macro perspective, we are the lucky ones, and that creates enormous opportunities. I first came to the Silicon Valley in 1975 when I came to graduate school. And I didn't think it through. You know, this wasn't a plan or a strategy. Many of you have actually thought about coming here and made the choice to come here. I did not. I had a girlfriend who went to law school in the Bay Area, and I said, I want to be near her. So that's how I got here. So not calculated, not thought through. I just showed up here accidentally, right? So no real plan. But I ended up in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. And when I first started getting into technology things, I remember thinking I'd see people starting companies or in a successful company. I go, wow, that's cool. You know, I wonder if I'll ever, you know, have my lucky break. That's how I thought. You know, will I ever get a lucky break like that guy? Holy crap! You know, that was a lucky break that guy had. What a cool opportunity he ran into. You know, but she's like, that doesn't come along all the time. In about 2 years of thinking that way, it dawned on me one day after looking at the environment that I was in. It's like, that's a totally idiotic way of thinking of things. There's opportunities everywhere in this environment. It is a target-rich environment all the time. And I don't care what you're talking about. You could talk about the day after the market crash in 2000, whatever that was, or 2008, or any of the most horrible times. This is a target-rich environment for cool opportunities in technology and technology entrepreneurship. There's always an enormous number of opportunities. The actual problem is the opposite one. Which one am I going to pick? Right? That's a bigger problem than is there an opportunity if you step back and look at it. Now, if you look in the history of technology, it's short, you know, in the big scheme of things, it's not that long a period of time, but there's been these, even though it's always target rich, I don't care how bad things are, if you're sitting here in the golden age of technology, there's a ton of opportunities. A fantastic time to be alive and being in this business segment. But there's still waves. Inside that generally positive thing, there's still waves. There was the microprocessor RAM wave of things that created a whole bunch of stuff. There was client server. There was the SaaS model of things. There was the internet. There was the social media. There's been these big waves of things that happen. And I guarantee you that IoT is another one of those waves. So it is a great topic to have in one of these things. Sometimes there's topics that, everybody wants it to be a wave. It's not that big a wave. This one's enormous. Now, people have been talking about it for a while. Actually, I first started working on IoT in 2001. I started an incubator in 2000. We started fooling around. It wasn't called IoT back then. We started fooling around with IoT, did these unbelievable demonstrations, prototypes. It was cool. I mean, demos that even today people don't do great jobs of. In 2001 through 2003, and we stopped. We gave it up. And the reason we gave it up, there wasn't the infrastructure in place. I remember this was way before any kind of iPhone existed. Most people didn't have wireless internet inside their offices even, let alone their homes. So there wasn't much infrastructure to really make it happen. So we gave up. We said, I just don't see how to make it really happen. But this IoT wave, it's been starting to develop. People have been talking about it. I think some people have gotten a little bit skeptical or jaded. Is it really going to happen? It is going to happen. I guarantee it. And it is going to be bigger than the internet wave. It really will be bigger than the internet wave. And fundamentally, why? There's more things than there are people. And therefore, this is all about connection to things. I guarantee you there's going to be more of a wave with this one than anything else. Now, so if you get kind of out in the water where that wave is starting to develop, you're bound to find something cool. But it's not everything that's going to work. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit here. Not all these things are going to be important. So it says Internet of Things, and it should be obvious, but it doesn't seem to be, that the thing you pick is actually the most important part of your idea, right? I mean, it seems obvious, but people don't act like that's so obvious. The thing you pick is super important. Now, let me give you some examples of that. So I saw there have been, that I know of, 4 companies that have been funded for the Internet of Things for sprinkler systems for your house, right? So that's an interesting thing, but is it really a company or a market? I don't think so. The thing that was chosen there is too small. It's not going to develop into something large enough. There's been 3 companies I know of, someone told me I'm wrong, there's more, that for automatic pet food feeders. The dog walks up, and food ends up in the dish, right? So is that a thing that's worthy of a company or a market? I don't think so. So the first thing you got to be aware of in all this is be careful about the thing you pick. And the reason for that is just like the internet. Just like the internet. Internet of Things is going to be everywhere. It's going to touch everything. One of the panelists said it here. He's exactly right. It will be everywhere. Everything a decade from now is going to be connected. Everything. But it's going to be a feature of a product. It's not going to be a company or a market. It's just like, some of you are probably too young to remember when the internet bust happened. It's like there was going to be an internet site for everything. For pet food, for underwear, for screws, and that was a ridiculous idea because Amazon did one for books. Why not have for every category, right? And that didn't work out. Well, because internet became a feature of every company at a certain point. So be careful. A lot of this Internet of Things activity, it's going to be a feature, not a standalone product or company or even, or for sure, a marketplace. So be careful about the thing you pick. Now, on the flip side of things, I will tell you, there are going to be big things. There are going to be inside those waves, just like in the internet, although every single company ended up with a website, and it became a feature of every company, and had dramatic impact everywhere. There are still category killers. There was Amazon that created something huge, and there was a Google, and there was a Facebook, and there was an Apple. So there are things that are gigantic. There are some things that are going to be relevant to become a huge marketplace, and we'll talk some more about what some of those things might be. A second thing to think about in the Internet of Things, I look at what people categorize as Internet of Things products. And one of the early consumer ones people said was Nest. There's a good example of Internet of Things. And I would call it should be careful here for any Google people in the audience, I'll call it half-assed, right? It's a half-assed Internet of Things, right? Or maybe half-headed, I don't know if you want to be more nicer about it, right? So, and the reason why And another one is the Hue light bulb, right? You know, Philips Hue light bulb. I put those in the same category. There's nothing wrong with them, by the way. I have Nests in my house, right? So it's there. But I'm talking about thinking macro as the Internet of Things. And I sometimes think it should actually not be IoT. It should be IQOT would be a better thing. Because the problem with those devices is that the reason I call them half-assed is they do half the job. They're really more about control. Is I can use a smartphone, you know, or a computer, some connected device, as a human to control that object, as opposed to having to walk over on the wall and turn a dial. Okay, so that's better. But that's not really what the Internet of Things is about, from my point of view. I think the Internet of Things is about intelligence. That's why I say IQOT is a better thing to think about. It's about intelligence. It's about gathering rich information, not just data, but gathering data, processing it, and being able to make automated decisions that then can control something. So Nest has half of it, the connection to the thing that allows the control, but a human has to do most of it, and that's kind of irritating, right? What you really want, the true Internet of Things, it's the full circle, right? It's complete. I gather rich new information, I process that data to actually create real information, and then I make intelligent decisions about that. And I have to close the loop with a control function that can actually execute on that intelligent decision that was made automatically for you. Yeah, cool, it's always good to have humans to intervene and modify or customize, but in general, that's the cycle of true IoT from my point of view, that full loop. Rich, new data processed in a very intelligent way to create a new kind of information that enables automated decisions, creating automatic large value to something. And don't do it in a trivial thing like a dog food container, right? Look for bigger opportunities, right? I always tell people that want to get into sales, sell the biggest thing you can. If they could sell countries, go sell countries. That's a better thing to sell than nuts and bolts, right? Go for the big thing. Same thing with markets like this. Go for something that's larger like that. So now I'll come and talk a little bit about how I got involved specifically in this. So I was fooling around with Internet of Things years ago. I sold my last company to Qualcomm, into their Internet of Things group, the all-joint group. Left, and I was thinking about what to do. And I said to myself, I'm never going to run another company again. That's a lot of hard work. I'm done with all that hard work. And I think I don't want to be a VC. I'm not that kind of person. I'm a hands-on person. I'll help. I'll go take 3 or 4 companies and assist and be on the board and be an active player. 6th man kind of on the team. That was my idea. And then I met the guys at Enlighted. And now I'm the CEO. And the reason is, as I started to look at it, I'd thought about the Internet of Things for a decade. And I met Tanuj Mohan, the founder and the CTO of the company. He's a genius. And he thought about the world in such a different, powerful way. And I thought about that for 10 years, but this guy got it. And if you thought about something hard for 10 years, and then you see someone really clearly think about it, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful thing meeting Tanuj, because he thought about this, and I'll give you his thought process because it's very instructive. He was introduced to it. He was a wireless guy, by the way. Didn't come from this world. And by the way, these cross-fertilizations, if there's people here who are not in the world of the Internet of Things, come on. This is the time to hit it because there's no one who knows what the hell they're doing. So come in and bring all your expertise to this marketplace. Tanuj was like that. He was a wireless guy. A friend of his was working. He wanted to build a complex sensor system to control lighting for buildings. And he said, Tanuj, you're a smart guy. Review this. Tell me what you think. And Tanuj's a very honest guy. He's not a mean guy, but he's honest. And he goes, I think your idea is crap. So his friend goes, why? He goes, well, I don't know. First of all, it was a wired system. So he goes, a wired system? How are you going to get into existing buildings? That's not going to work. But more than that, his first observation was the big giant leap. And because he intuitively had this thing about picking the right thing. He goes, you're going to all this work, you're going to build this complex system, digital signal processor, all this data, to control a light. And he goes, wow, that seems like a lot of work to control a light. He goes, why don't you instead build a sensor system that looks at the whole building and everything going on in the building? Not just the lights, but the temperature, what people are doing inside it, what the equipment is happening. Get a picture of the whole building. The light's a subset problem. Then you have all that information-rich data. Use all that information and data to control the light. That's a subset. But you can do all that other stuff in addition. So his first brilliant leap was he went from Internet of Things where the thing was light to Internet of Things where the thing was real estate, buildings. That's a huge leap, by the way, and extremely important. The lighting industry is arguably $20 billion. The building industry is trillions of dollars, right? So, wow, that's a much bigger thing, much bigger play. That kind of generalization, that was brilliant on his part. And by the way, that's what got me so excited. I said, I got to do this. I got to jump in. Because I do believe that the Internet of Things is the biggest opportunity I have seen in my lifetime. I've seen a lot of cool things, but this is the biggest thing that I have seen in my lifetime, and I couldn't not be part of it. So that's how I got sucked into it. Now, what do we do at Enlighted? And this is an important thing. When I got to the company, there was confusion. So what we do, we build a sensory system for buildings. And I mean it quite literally. It's, buildings today have no nervous system. They don't have any skin sensors for touch or feel. They have no backbone transmission system except in the IT group, and there's no brain associated with them. So there's no sensory system in a building. And that's what a sensory system is, by the way, very much like human one or an animal one. You have end sensors, you have a transmission system, you have a brain for processing that controls into something to happen. So we build a sensory system. We build these little sensor modules. Tanuj, one of his other great leaps was put one sensor module at every single light. And he goes, why, right? His idea about that was, he said, it's a symbiotic relationship between lights and the sensor system. The sensor gets power. You heard that in the last panel. Power's a bitch, right? I got it. It's better with Bluetooth LE and all that kind of stuff, but it's a bitch, right? You don't have to deal with batteries, right? So you get power automatically with a light, and you get position. That's even more important. If you have a sensor module at every single light, it guarantees you can see every square foot of the building, because you have to light every square foot of the building. So you're just riding on it. You're just attaching to something where it's already done. That's always useful as an entrepreneur. Now, by the way, that would be a parasitic relationship. Ooh, I suck position and power out of the light. Screw you. But we have a digital signal processor in every single one of these sensor modules, and we give a little piece of it back to the light. So we give every single light fixture a brain. And that's the relationship. That's the connection. There's a lighting system, and there's a sensory system. The connection is, wait, you use power and position, we give you the smarts to run your lights in a very intelligent fashion. And by the way, we save, on average, we've installed over 100 million square feet. We save, on average, 70% of the lighting energy, 70%. And the people in the buildings will tell you the lighting's better than it ever has been. That 70% of the energy was pure waste, pure waste. And the beautiful thing of it is that savings in energy pays for the installation of the sensor network. Another beautiful combination. If you didn't have that, it would be hard from a channel point of view just to get people to go in this direction. So that's the idea. The sensor module, one at every fixture, doing this digital signal processing, gathering this cool data, rich data, packaging it up, giving a little of the intelligence back to the light to make the most efficient light ever built, and then sending the data to the cloud where you can start building all kinds of cool applications about what's going on in the building. By the way, the lighting is the least valuable thing that we do with the sensory system. The least valuable thing is the thing that we actually sell at the beginning. Lighting costs people 3 cents per square foot per month on average in the United States. It's more everywhere else. US was the worst place to start this company, by the way. Labor is high, lighting energy costs are low. Horrible place to start this company, but it still works, right? So think about other things. HVAC is a little bit better, but it's still like cents, it's like 9 cents per square foot per month. When it gets interesting is other applications. I'll give you examples of what you can do with it. Space planning. You actually can see exactly how every square foot of your building is used every minute of the day. How many people are in every space and what they're doing. Are they moving? Are they standing? Are they walking? Are they running? You see all that information. For the first time in history, you have real-time data on space, which allows people to be more efficient in space. Space costs people $3 per square foot per month. That's 100 times more expensive than lighting. 100 times more expensive. That's more exciting to people. We can also do this in retail. And we can watch what people are doing in the retail space. Where are they spending their time? Does that end cap work? Does that schmuck that I thought was a lousy employee actually go talk to the customers, right? All that stuff is what you can see with this sensor system. In a retail environment, the average retail environment sells $30 per square foot per month. That's 1,000 times more than the lighting energy, right? 1,000 times more. So the leverage there is huge. When we go talk to retail people, the retail guys go, screw the lighting. I don't really give a damn, right? I don't care if we save any energy there at all. Just give me the data about the people, and if I can manage that sales flow a little bit better. Asset tracking is another great example of it. I was in a hospital talking with a CEO of a hospital, and the hospital guy, and this is a very important one. And I'll backtrack a second here. Have you ever heard, how many of you have heard a VC tell you, you need to do painkillers, not vitamins? How many people have heard that? It's a very standard VC thing. Are you selling painkillers or vitamins, right? By the way, the right answer is painkillers, right? Okay, that's the right answer. If you ever hear that, just painkiller. This is absolutely painkiller. It's not just Advil. I don't know what's better than Advil, but it's that. It's not what Prince took, though. So it's a better painkiller, right? Now, why is that? By the way, some of these, these kind of homilies aren't that great, but that's a good one. Painkiller versus vitamin. Why do they say that? It's because vitamins are good for you, but there's no urgency, to take a vitamin. And it's hard work to convince people to take vitamins. You can market the hell out of it, you can convince, you can nag, you can advertise, and you can get people to do it. But it's hard work. If you have a headache, it is not hard work to get you to take Advil. It's really not, right? And that's the whole idea. You want painkillers, not vitamins. Now, by the way, the CEO of this hospital, he said, your energy shit, that's vitamins. He goes, I really don't care. He's a nice guy, by the way. He would never say what I just said. He's nice. He goes, honestly, I like energy savings. I'm green like everybody else, but it's not on my top 10 priority list as a CEO of a hospital. I really don't care about energy savings in my top 10. It's vitamins to him, right? He'd never get to it, ever, ever, ever in a million years, right? I said, why are you talking to me then? And he goes, asset tracking, Joe. Asset tracking. Painkiller. He's got a migraine headache. Right? Asset tracking. He said, I can tell you, and I can convince you in 30 seconds. He goes, nurses in the United States of America, we did a longitudinal study with 15 other hospitals, hospital companies. Nurses in the United States of America spend on average 1 hour per day looking for equipment. The single greatest shortage of people in the United States is nurses, right? And we take the shortest employee pool, and we spend 12.5% wasting their time wandering around looking for stuff. That's a pain issue. That's a painkiller issue for him. So he buys it, then he wants it. Now, by the way, here's an interesting twist on this. Then he goes, I want it everywhere, because if I can solve that problem, it really fixes a lot of stuff inside my company. He goes, but then I calculated, I don't have the money to afford putting it in every building. He goes, now I kind of like the energy savings. All of a sudden, it became a painkiller. The energy savings became a painkiller because once he had a reason to put it everywhere, he didn't have the money to do it, and so he needed the energy savings to pay for the system. So it all ends up, whoosh, it worked, in that fashion, back and forth. But the key in this whole thing is the painkillers. You gotta look for those painkillers. That's the critical thing. The other thing, and again on the panel before this, there's a great comment about it, which is it's a great statement, and I'll give a slightly different version. When you're looking for the thing to work on, for the thing to do in a market, you gotta focus on that painkiller thing, but focus on markets. Actually, there was a very famous business management professor, guy that had written a lot of books called Peter Drucker. He died some number of years ago, but very, very famous. Wrote a number of very seminal books and papers on organizations, et cetera. And he did a study once about why companies fail. And particularly had a lot of technology companies that do great, everything's good. They do dynamite, then they level out, but they're still doing fantastic. And then they have these cataclysmic failures. And why does these, what's that pattern? What causes the cataclysmic failure? Is it finance? What is it that causes that? Is it management, mismanagement? You could say it's always mismanagement in some case, but he found the thing that was 100% correlated with those failures is that the company identified itself with its technology or its product, and not with its customer or its market. And what happened is the customer's needs, its pain-killing needs, changed, or the market shifted. And they kept sticking with their product and their technology and tried to force, square peg, round hole. And they kept pushing and pushing and pushing, but the world was changing. What the customer needed and how they thought about the world was different, and they didn't change with it. So when you're thinking about which things make sense here, run away from anybody that just talks about technology. There's a ton of those things out there, by the way. They are solutions, they're technologies in search of a problem, something that is going to solve somebody's pain, but they don't have one. You should start the other way around. You got to start, you may have an idea with a technology, but quickly, if you have a technology idea, quickly move to, where's the pain point that I can solve? Where is the problem? Where's that market issue that somehow I can resolve? That's the key thing. You've got to focus on that if you're going to be successful, especially in a market as big as something like IoT. Something that ginormous, with that many opportunities, you've got to winnow it down and look for those ones that are those killer opportunities. I want to close here and give people a chance to ask a couple of questions, fairly quickly. But just to summarize on these things, the IoT space, it truly is enormous. It's going to be bigger than I think any wave anybody has ever seen over this next decade. It's going to be rich with opportunities, but be very careful when you select it. Pick your thing carefully. Go for the thing that really has substance. Watch out. Don't work on a feature, because your company will die. You'll never make it. Work on something that is large enough to be a market. See if, like Tanush did, you can abstract it to something larger. Make sure that you're solving the total problem. Don't do a halfway thing. Look for something where you're going to solve the entire solution. As I say, the IQOT. In the IoT world, my test for it is you better be gathering new rich data that didn't exist on something significant, process that data and take actions that couldn't be done before. That's a way to test it. And look for sure, is there a customer space? Is there a market space that's significant enough where I am delivering that painkiller? This is what's super important. If you've got a dream in this space, I will tell you, we are the lucky ones. We really are. We're right in the right place. And when you look at this IoT wave, you're even in a better place, being in this golden age of technology, looking at IoT when this market's about to explode. Couldn't be a better place. You are the lucky ones. Really go out there, make those dreams real, the things you're thinking about there, and I guarantee that will make the entire world prosper in a way that we've never seen before. That's the opportunity in IoT. With that, I'll close and open to some questions. What are some of the big opportunities that I see in this space? I'll start with the local thing that I just see myself, that's very local to me. If you look in the space that I'm talking about, just commercial real estate, it's going to be a gigantic ecosystem. I think the best way to describe it would be like the smartphone world. It's almost like you're installing a smartphone kind of infrastructure into the ceiling of these buildings. And you're going to create this, this platform and start extracting all this data. But when you say that, that data, all kinds of wild applications emerge from it. I will tell you, every single week, somebody comes to our company and has some idea how to use the data in a way that, wow, I never thought about that. I'll give you an example. We had an elevator guy show up with a contractor. And the elevator guy, he wasn't supposed to be there. He was with the contractor for the next meeting. But he sat through the meeting anyway. And at the end, he goes to Tanush, our founder. He goes, Tanush, you revolutionized elevators. And Tanush is like, wow, I'm good. How? Right? So the guy goes, no, you don't know elevators. They're actually relatively simple. Make them safe, safe, safe. That's the most important thing. After that, it's pretty simple. People want to not wait too long. And the building owner, of course, they don't want you to wait too long, but they're more concerned about energy consumption. That's it. And he says, you know how we manage that? He said, it's like the thermostat on the wall. He said, there is a default setting for every elevator. When do people come to work? When do they go to lunch? When do they go home? Default for every day of the week. Sometimes people change it, but often we go into these places, it hasn't been changed in 10 years, right? He said, we have all these complex models, but they're based on no data. No information, no data. He goes, with your system, I have all the sensors to tell me exactly what people are doing, when they're doing it, when they're walking towards the elevator, for God's sake. I can make the perfect elevator with this. And he goes, no elevator guy would have had the balls to put a sensor system in a building. We're lucky to just get it into the elevator shaft, right? He goes, but that's what we needed. We need your data, and I feed that into this elevator, and I build the greatest elevator on the planet. I could give you 50 more examples like that of cool things in this ecosystem. And there's will be 100 more after that. There's going to be a wildly rich ecosystem in just this space of commercial real estate of all the different things you can do. I'll give you another example. I was just in a meeting where a guy told me about an Internet of Things security play. And that's a good play, by the way. That one I believe. That's a painkiller issue for people, right? Because in the Internet of Things, you can imagine, I mean, I'll tell you in our example, so we put these Sentry systems into all kinds of hot shit companies all around the world, right? And the truth is, I would have the power, if you didn't have some kind of security mechanism, to blink the lights in the CEO's office at Google. If I wanted to just sit and dick with him, I could go, So you do not want that to happen, or to shut those lights down like that. So you got to have some really heavy-duty security to make sure that people can't play with that. And the security issues, or why it's a good platform, there's real issues. And the problem is different in the Internet of Things than it has been before. So having somebody who focuses their energy on that is a great one. So there are tons and tons of opportunities like that I see.